Dang. Air Twister. More like Ass Twister. Yo, can we get some shoutouts in the chat for you, Suzuki? Because this man, for research while making Outrun, blasted across Europe in a Ferrari for a few weeks. Hashtag bring back Rockstar game devs, I say, because you know Undertale would have been better if Toby Fox drove a sports car. How much harder could Putt Putt Saves the Zoo have gone if they'd have done a few lines before release? Much to ponder, much to ask, and so today I say, what is this new game Yu Suzuki done made? Suppose post Shenmue 3 I'd probably want to do something a bit more simple too, which is why Air Twister was originally released for iPhones. Home of the runner game with the coins and shit and the traffic and the trains. Not that I can hate on mobile games. Shout out Belantro Underworld. Shout out all of those funny old things I'd like to dig into one day, like Spyro's scant and empty Flattywood Adventures. Or those The Ex Mortis level Silent Hill games. Or Dirge of Cerberus. Wait, you can have like Cloud in your phone as like a Tamagotchi or some shit? If I did have any beef, it'd be with their long-term fragility, I guess. Tons of those games I just mentioned are barely playable now, and even in their day, they weren't the most accessible either, being locked to specific data plans, networks, or phone models. And even today, with Air Twister, my bitch ass uses Android, so it's not like I have access to Apple Arcade. No fucking way. They really did make Apple Pippin 2, with Fraught Night on there and Netflix and everything. Wow, very cool. Thanks, Steve. But also thanks to our sponsor, Infinity Nikki. Yeah, this game I know you know, has teamed up with me to help promote the upcoming Steam release, as well as the brand new, already live Revelry Season event, bringing a joyful and whimsical carnival atmosphere to this beautifully crafted fairy tale style open world, in which one can play as Nikki, explore said open world, and dress up in tons of stunning outfits to gain all kinds of unique abilities that aid in platforming and traversal. Or you can simply go fishing and buck catching and do all manner of other expressive and cozy things, as displayed by these outfit screenshots from my friends here who urged me to include them in this segment. I'm sure that they, as well as y'all though, would be happy to know that during the Revelry Season event, one can obtain 4 free new outfits, get 15 free pulls, 2,500 diamonds, and you even get the chance to dance with the long-legged Momo. Wow! Look pretty in this pretty world, whether that be through the brand new limited time 5-star outfit Into Delusions, or while floating and gliding on through a wide variety of landscapes in costumes of your own design. Heck, they're even gonna add decoratable housing in the future, so why not go with Nikki and Momo on a fantastical adventure across the nations of Mirrorland, become the fashion, partake in the Wish Carnival party during the Revelry event, and wishlist Infinity Nikki on Steam. I even got y'all with a special gift code to claim free resources in-game, INFINITYNIKKISteam, which will be listed in the description and pinned comment, along with links relating to Infinity Nikki and its social media, where all the latest updates on it can be found. Thanks again for the sponsorship, and now, back to the video. So, what is Air Twister anyway? Well, if you've played or seen or heard of Space Harrier or Panzer Dragoon, it is ostensibly a spiritual successor to the former and a swag jack of parts of the latter. Both of those games were auto-scrolling shooters, so the screen did cool shit while things for you to shoot and avoid would come at the player. Very simple, phoneable even, especially as this one has a targeting lock-on thingy that automatically triggers as you swerve past stuff, and well, I mean, this UI is very touchscreen coded still, let's be real. This then also means that much like its sibling post-Sega-like Balan Wonderworld, it is also a one-button game on controllers. To be fair, the shooting works freely outside of the lock-on too, due to the weird arc the bullets have. It's defo not that easy to aim, though maybe when tapping shit hit it different. I like the lock-on stuff though. Straightforward as it be, being that we get a rather fascinating dichotomy between needing to be quick enough to get out of the way of projectiles versus needing to hover in front of the very enemies that shoot them, forcing one to get into harm's way to harm's away pretty much. Otherwise, there's no cooldowns or timers or bullet types or recharges or anything of the sort. You can spam bust till your heart's content, and there's no specials or screen clearers either. It's a really pure sort of experience, much like a simple arcade game like Outrun, relying more so here on the arcing of enemy projectiles and the 3D gaugeability for difficulty, as well as a lot of fast, smooth, exciting movements. I'm gonna guess a hazard and hesitate to say that that's partially because the screen needed to be clear enough to tap about the place touchscreen style. It can't go bullet heck levels of bonkers, and so, like, again, other past Suzukis, it's about a rather simple challenge and also really, truly, actually about just taking in the vibes. Because, I mean, it's hella cohesive in this regard, I'd argue. The waltzy, whimsical music suits the sweeping patterns of ballroom-like dance that the enemies and projectiles exhibit to a T. The bravado, the scale, the symphonicity, perfectly complementing the loud, colorful stages that add exciting clutter where the heck of bullets lack. I genuinely really fuck with these level themes as well. Very reminiscent of older Sega titles or even the 2D Sonics, where it's like, yeah, fuck it. Moai heads, space, big mushrooms, flying town islands, giant enemy crab. There's little hints and nods to Segas of Sega's past, and I think that's really cute. A big one, though, is, of course, the already mentioned Panzer Dragoon, and what I think is very important to that game is how much it was a technical marvel for its time. It didn't need to be loud or cluttered, it just needed to be in the time and place it was in on the tech that it was made for, and I'm not sure Air Twister has that going for it. I mean, by all means, it looks pretty great for a phone game, but obviously that aspect just won't hit the same nowadays. On another tip, Panzer Dragoon is kind of hard as balls and really slow sometimes, and this is like the polar opposite. It is buttery, quick, the levels are brief, nor is it nearly as tough, and I don't know, I just kind of really mess with that, making this ostensibly a modern spin on that similar idea. Spectacle in the palm of thine hand, with iPad baby attention span proofing and more casual playstyle friendly pacing caked on in there. I love observing little design considerations like that. Like how a platform can inform how a game can form to suit its self-suiting. I mean, Space Harrier was a coin-guzzling arcade blast-em-up that needed to be loud and flashy enough to attract people in public spaces. Panzer Dragoon was a serious, artsy, lore-heavy, low-key affair and graphical showcase for a bold new 3D system aiming to turn games into more than just guzzlers. And Air Twister is a snippy, simple, casual game with shiny sparkles, rainbows, tickety unlocks, weekly events, and many other dopamine triggers, all at a speed so blazing one can finish it in a single shitting. It's culture, it's media, it's art, it's history, it is the future, past and present encapsulated in a sequence of games coming from the same lineage, and I think that's rather fucking cool. Maybe that makes AT less so at home on PS5, though. Again, I don't have an iPhone or a Pippin 2, so the accessibility is appreciated. Besides, it doesn't have no micros or payment models or nothing, so the store and events in this are just kinda cute and wholesome, really. Plus, if it had stayed on its native system, it would have never had gotten this shiny-ass, render-ass box art that still comes with a manual. I'm not even really someone who cares about that. I totally understand why manuals went away, but for a game so old school in its design and history, that sure is a very fitting and cute touch, I gotta admit. All of this, however, does make me want to discuss the idea of exclusivity for a bit. So, mayhaps it is about time I hit y'all with the intro first. Welcome to So I've Been Playing, the show where I talk about games and experiences I have experienced that I wasn't able to make fully fledged videos out of or repurpose otherwise. Because, well, before we move on to the next game crowbarred out of Steve Jobs' grave, I wanted to talk about accessibility to games versus the personality of a library. You see, all the way back when I was working on my mysterious PS3 games, I kept running into the fact that despite both consoles having plenty of exclusives, not only were most games on both and thus hard to quantify and qualify as PS3 games specifically, both systems visually, vibually, also had very similar energies. I opted against calling it the 7th gen vibe because the Wii was off doing its own little thing, as were the handhelds of the day as well, which is why PS360 aesthetic was the name that stuck. But this do be the thing. While to varying degrees, this counts for all prior gens, as said gen would go on, the planet would multi even more so. Adding up to where we are now, with everything kind of blending a little bit between systems. Not that there's nothing, I guess. Xbox has that streaming Surface Netflix energy that I really don't mess with at the moment, but is such a current of the time thing that I could easily see it getting reappraised at some point. And PS5 is all like, the cinema, the gravity, the user experience. Swim inside of the Coca-Cola. And Nintendo, while being wholly riskless on a UI front, though I secretly actually really like the sound effects, is again just kind of off doing its own thing a bit more. These systems do have their own energies, but the libraries, not so much at this point. Some games do feel system-coded to me regardless, I suppose. Deadly Premonition 2 or No More Heroes 3, despite being on PC or whatever else, will never not feel like Switch games in my eyes. Same way Final Fantasy 16 or Stray are PS5 games to me, and Hi-Fi Rush is defo like the Xbox Series game as well. Just the one. And all this is fine, like, I don't give a shit. Times change, but change they indeed have. Yeah, sure, I can play Baby Shark, Sing and Swim Party on PS5, 4, Switch, and the Xboxes, and that accessibility owns. But it's also exactly the same game on all of them, and I do really wonder how it would look if it was ported to, say, the Nintendo DS, as one of my favorite system libraries of all time. This is in large part due to how many games on there are wholly locked and unique to it. Thing is, as I think Space Harrier to Dragoon to Twister shows perfectly too, a game's its design and energy can be really heavily influenced by which system it was designed for. And with the DS having two screens, one of them being a touchscreen, as well as a sort of like PC sort of vibe about it, certainly early on, that then dictated so much of what was made for it. Tons of adventure games, applications, fun wild experimentations, games for adults, and other weird little anomalies, like a Final Fantasy game suddenly being an RTS out of nowhere, which is kind of nuts. Especially because that's such a PC type of genre that isn't very well represented outside of that platform. That platform also being really fascinating to me from this POV, seeing as now in a world of Steam, it became almost sort of the dumping ground. Which I say wholly non-derogatorily, but the energy that PC gaming used to have is very different these days with the sheer volume of multiplats and other controller-driven games like the indies that are really only on PC because it's most easiest to publish to. You can really see this evolution happen in real time too through the menus and UI design of Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim, where it's like you can use your mouse to click about here, but you really ideally wouldn't want to anymore. Despite this series used to be being PC as heck. Love a game like Diablo for exactly that reason. As everything about it, from its sharp but tiny pre-renders at a top-down isometric angle and liberal use of big CD audio, to the maximalist mouse-based interfacing and a very grim and dark metal-as-fuck adult-oriented tones, are all quirks stemming from it being developed as a computer game. Ignoring whatever this bizarre Russian PS1 version is. Oh my god, they made like a whole unique opening FMV for this?
А то вскоре мы согреемся, закипим и разложим тебя как цыпленка вот на этом пуфике.
Holy shit! The technicals, the controls, the monitor over TV, and even the older duded D&D metalhead 90s audience are all factors at play here. Factors that can also make it kind of a bitch to run today depending or to indeed port. As much as I love the DS for instance, accessing its library on a 2025 can really suck. Emulation finicky. Displays are an issue, let alone recording shit for videos. I shelved out like 600 on a 3DS with a capture card for that shit. And so, the multiplatidity the PSV 60 gen brought sure as shit ain't a bad thing per se whatsoever. Oblivion might be a Xbox game in my eyes, despite me honestly having only truly experienced it through the GOG release, but god damn, have y'all ever seen the canned PSP port? That shit's level-based. Linear levels, and none of the open world. It's a port so borked it's a completely new game entirely, and I think that's really fun. Also, one of my favorite games of all time, Deadly Premonition, is apparently entirely different on Xbox than it was on the PlayStation, PC, and Switch versions that are all fairly similar. Other hues, lighting, and colors. Gameplay has feels unique to it. The UI is white, and it's less broken. Basically, just granting me an alternate peek at a game I otherwise know like the back of my hand. Neat. I only found this out, by the way, through starting a Wii 360 skunk collection with only the biggest bangers. Like exclusives and exclusive versions that I feel all encapsulate how the 360 looked, played, and felt and sounded on its own, specifically more so than the multi-plat PS360 games ever could. So, yeah, maybe I do honestly miss this era of porting and hard exclusivity a little bit. Shit like MK on Switch, Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition, or Astro Child using the PS5 specific controller gimmicks really flare me up for that reason, as it's like, whoa, that's that shit right there. That flip phone, Wiimote, and PSP level shit, and I fucking love it. That said, as cool as it is that Air Twister was informed by its iOS origins, I couldn't have played it that way. Same way, I'm very glad Fantasian was freed from the cold dead grip of the dreaded Steve Jobs. When Square Enixed, the Gooch annexed, forming his own studio called Mistwalker, which then made several highly acclaimed not Final Fantasies, only to then spend a good decade or so making card games for phones, leaving the people who loved what they did wanting more. So with that in mind, Fantasian is kind of a return to a former form, just with way less of a budget and a more casual, less ambitious feel about it. A return to a point to where the pro tag has amnesia. There's a world map, there's turn-based random encounters, save points, and camera angles. That latter point is key. As you see, they did not render anything, they instead made very real, actual, tangible diorama model tables. That's not only cute, but it also coats the whole experience in a goop of passion project core, a small world for a small system, and as such, Fantasian be the type of game where we start in a dusty desert town and instantly bump into like 3 cats as the cozy Twilight Town-esque Nobuo Uematsu music fades on in. Setting the stage for cozy exploration, chatting, and examining, with nay a pressure in sight. Climbing up the stairs, post a 4th cat to walk along a ridgety ridge for treasure, and entering the inn to chill in its cute restaurant, admiring the produce, chunky barrels, the turquoise door, and the immense tangible texture of it all. I'm not usually one to be all stricken by nostalgia, but the enterable buildings in Fantasian do make me realize how much I miss shit like this in all modern big RPGs almost. Like, it feels like towns got bigger and bigger in a lot of 2010s and onward RPGs, but the enterability sort of suffered under that, I feel. Yeah, yet here in this bitch, we're doing that thing that used to be super common in like Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6, where weaselability behind counters through back doors to loot a big fat hidden treasure chest was the name of the game. And that really struck a nerve with me somehow, despite not having spent all that much time playing the actual SNES FFs, though I suppose that DS version of 3's nostalgia is just as ripe for the picking. And also, these adorable little hand-placed gemstones, oh my god. Just knowing that they glued those on there one by one themselves is so... Again, it's just giving passion project. Just peep upon how fuzzy this carpet, how water this moist, how fluffy this chest, how big these nuts are, being that they're real seeds in tiny wee babby flasks. Smoke the flaky particulates on this tiny rooflet and how the dust coats the crevices. I'm fucking obsessed, and this is just my first hour or so in the very first town. I mean, from my POV, it's like this. I've spent years going off about the handcraftedness of 3D models in games of various fidelities, how they can look like papercraft or dioramas, and how the texturing and shading influences what and how. And so, seeing this actual real shit with all the collected trinkets, the materials, that's like the Final Fantasy 12 store gubbins times 1 billion, so yeah, no shit, I'm gonna be hype about how this looks. Certainly with how many unique interiors there are. Like, this is on some Legend of the Dragoon or Final Fantasy 7 levels of townage, where every building is to be entered with always something cute inside to see or find. What really adds to it for me as well is that with the 3D modeling, it's not that hard to whip up a few wee homes. With rendering, it can be a bit more trickier, but still very doable. But they fucking made these by hand. Yeah, there's objects and parts they can reuse and rearrange or repurpose, but even fucking then. I was looking at this, wondering if maybe they did cop out using a bit of rendering, like on the floor here or whatever, but in later houses, in later towns, you can see where the wall and floor parts click together, and that's just such a wild amount of effort to put into something that's largely optional, because you don't need to check all the rooms of this apartment complex in this already giant city, but they still made all of it accessible and explorable anyway. Also, what they add in post is so nice too. The depth of field effects, falling leaves, the birds and butterflies, this goddamn Gatorade-like water. I want to drink it just as much as I want to eat these kale-made trees. Love that I can see where the planters on the Sand Sea cruise ship were glued onto the floor as well, as they all neatly align with these equally edible fondant curtains. Not to mention seeing the actual brushstrokes, the seams running along the edges of a wall, the slight scuff on this rounded bit at the oh my fucking god! And in a way, one could argue Fantasian is simply running through the hits. The Venice town, the desert town, the cruise ship, the forest, the Colosseum, the big capital, and sure, yes, but they've also never looked like this before. I can stare at these tiny blue bottles for hours. This snortable Warhammer grass sent these wafer-like planks. Shout out the Midgarian scrap heap for real, full of actual little machine parts and knickknacks. Shit's cute as fuck.
Hi, Dio.
Do you know any places where sailors hang out around here?
Sailors? Yeah, I see them at night.
At night?
They're really big bad dudes, you know.
Sadly, that going through the hits thing is what did give me maybe not the best time at times. Yeah, that's out there on the table now, isn't it? Fuck. I mean, I called this game a return to a return to, and that's largely because Fantasian is old-fashioned as fuck. A lot of people are going to fuck with that, primarily those who grew up on or love Super Nintendo era JRPGs. But me, bebe even. Baby. So while I was loving the exploring of areas, I was also gradually feeling the dread set in of negative thoughts and feelings I don't like having, along the lines of, oh no, am I getting bored? Why is the encounter rate gotta be like that though? Why am I almost dying against every single boss fight, even the earlier ones? Is this game gonna be difficult? And yeah, it kind of is. Very well made, though. I can sense the cautious planning and design. I dig the trajectory, lines, alignment system of the battle system with the skills curving in different ways type system. Great sound effects work and animations too. It's a very satisfying system. Shout out the Muso battles. Shout out using the idle animations as timing. That's very creative. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And while I think the story is, well, it reads as a cheaper version of FF7 to me, I do really like the characters. I think they're pretty cute and adorable, and it even does some fun subversions with our main lad's amnesia, being that pre-Amne he was more of a typical JRPG protag, but now that he don't remember that anymore, he's just a sweet precious baby boy. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of shit in here that I like or even love, and I respect this game shitloads. But why is it gotta be paced that way? So much going back to places again and encounters in towns? Like, what do you mean? Where's my downtime at? And why, when there is downtime, is it so long and kind of walk between the same places-y? Granted, I probably just got that impatient modern-day human attention span. Heck, I know I do. Smoking on that spectrum. But I do feel that the PS1 FFs that inspired it did a better job maximizing their spaces with more interesting things than the walking between fights and text boxes that you get here. It's all context, really. Why you are somewhere and how it is framed. Being at a town, sneaking around from guards, or being there to hunt someone down and asking questions, falling into mini-games and mini-scenarios. Shit like that is all the same walkie-talkie battle shit, but it makes it feel like it isn't. Wall Market, Lindblom, stuff like that. And Fantasian, I don't find really has that. Like, not at all, but not very strongly. Everything's lighter here, thinner. For example, there's a prison break sequence and just nothing really happens. You lockpick the door, walk out, and, well, then you walk out. No chase, no stealth, no disguises moment or anything along those lines. And so, yeah, I did just become a little bit bored as my playthrough went on. And trust me, I really hate saying that, but sadly, it's just true. Love all of the funny references, though, like bringing back those Lost Odyssey novel segments. FF10 hit the thing mid-battle to do the thing. This Garnet meeting angle upon girl reveal to the bouncer. Save screen text, and the OST certainly has many motif calling back to previous motifs, which is cute. It's all things that stand on their own, but I know that this is literally the princess's room from 9 in Lindblom 1-to-1 recreated. And besides, I can't help but feel maybe the Venice town is Gooch checking 15 and being like, ha, I can do that shit, which is an energy I will always respect. Shout out being fueled by spite and dunking on motherfuckers. Again, there's a lot to love here, and I've certainly done so. Yo, wait, Arzest worked on this? Ooh, who knew Balan Wonderworld was going to be influential on both of the games in this video? Truly, the game of the decade. Balan Wonderworld.